All right, so I know I had said I would make one long video. I guess I went a little bit too long in that last one, so I'm going to try to keep it a lot faster from now on. So biochemistry, intro to biochemistry, all right? So that's the next one we're going to be looking at, okay? So let's look at the unanswered. All right, so proteins and carbs, okay, they perform various functions in the body, okay? Carbs, if you ever eat anything, if you know, carbs are actually broken down into sugars, like sugars and carbs, they're very similar. If you look at the carbs in food, it's sugar. So monosaccharides is the word that we use for sugars. So carbs, they break down into pieces, it's sugar. Breaking down proteins, if you've ever heard of the term amino acids, that's what that means. It's the protein little pieces that make up a protein. Short, sweet, to the point, sort until organic or inorganic. Organic just means that it contains carbon. Everything organic contains carbon. So carbon, carbon, carbon. This is Cr. That's not carbon. It's a different molecule. Boom, not carbon, not carbon, not carbon. Boom, you're good. Lipids, fats, okay? Lipids are also needed in the body. So we're trying to figure out what lipids are broke down to, what makes up a lipid. And you're gonna create fatty acids, okay? Really easy to remember. Lipids are fatty, okay? But it also makes this thing called glycerol. It's kind of like liquidy, weird substance, all right? So lipids, fatty acids, and glycerol. This says bears typically eat plant and food. If it can't find meat, it's going to have lower fat. So just like we talked about, last question, fat is going to be essential fatty acids. And this is going to directly affect, it's not going to affect their muscles because it's not protein. It's not going to affect their bones because it's not calcium. It's going to affect their cell membrane because that's what fat, goes towards. So everything, molecules, compounds, you need this banjo on the wall, like every single thing that exists, it's made up of atoms, all right? Two atoms together, when they combine, it forms a molecule. But two elements like carbon and oxygen, that together, carbon and oxygen, that makes a compound, okay? Harder to like figure out on your own. But if you look, this is just an equation. And if we zoom in just a hair, if we're able to, okay, you see this arrow, that means left and right, that it's split up. It's kind of like an equal sign. So you're trying to make all the numbers on the left match all the numbers on the right. And if you look, you've got one C, nothing attached to it because each one of these is separate. C, O2, there's two O's. So you've got C on this side. You only have one C on this side. You have two C's on this side, okay? So you need to make two C's on this side, okay? You have 6 H's, all right? So how many H's do you have on this side? Oh, you only have 2. Well, that means you need 3 over here. So that's 6 H's. 2 times 3 is 6, okay? And you have 2 O's over here, okay? Well, we have 4 because 2 times 2 is 4. So we have 4 over here plus the extra 3, that's 7. Ooh, that's a weird number, okay? But 702, well, crap, that makes 14, okay? And follow with me because I know that got a little confusing. 7 makes 14 of them, okay? Because you can't have an odd number, you can't like put an odd number here, you can't put 3.5, it has to be a whole number. So you have 7, okay? That's the trick here. Okay, so now you have 14 here. Well, you only have 4 O's and you have 7 O's. So how can you make, this side work out? Well, just double everything. Okay, so you had 7 O's. Now you have 14 O's. Okay, well, now you have 6 times 2, that's 12. Okay, well, what makes 12 H's? 2. 2 times 6. Okay, well, how many carbons do you have? 4. 4. Look, it all balanced out. This one's really hard. It's a college level thing sometimes to do this level of biochemistry. So I'm not too worried if it's a little bit confusing. All right, so monomer over here, that means small little building block, okay? Just like we had just talked about. Now, I don't care that right now you can't figure out which of these belongs to what, all right? And if you go through the tutorial a lot, yeah, but I mean, even in college, like this was hard for me. It takes time, okay? But what are the four? So if you're looking at the little pieces, what are the little pieces? Okay, well, we had talked about lipids. So fatty acids make up lipids. We talked about proteins, amino acids. We talked about carbs or sugars. That's monosaccharide. And nucleic acid, nucleotide. I mean, that one's a little bit more obvious, and it's the last one. So a nucleotide, and you're not going to know this right now, but a nucleotide is always going to have this like weird little p. And it's phosphorus. That's what makes up our DNA. This is each little teeny dot of DNA that we have is all made up of a bunch of these all connecting together. Okay. Carbohydrates, sugars, they're going to look like this. They're like flat. And that's why it's actually, you know, yeah, they're gonna look flat. They're really small, but it's gonna be flat. I don't know how else to explain that. Proteins, and this is the interesting part. This is something, if you're gonna remember anything from this page, it's this. Proteins are really small. If you've ever like worked out, lost a lot of weight, you're at HICA, like when you're at HICA, lost a lot of weight, and then gained a lot of muscle. You gained weight, but proteins are smaller. They're really tiny. That's why you look thinner, even if you weigh the same. But fats, lipids, are like really long, and when they stack together, it creates this like really weird shape, and that's why you look bigger even if you weigh the same. A little bit weirder, but we had talked about atoms are just, they make up everything, but they're just one little thing. It's the smallest thing you can have in the entire world is an atom. So atoms are going to be these little pieces. And same thing over here, you see that, you know, they're all separate little pieces. So these are both atoms. Compounds are going to be two different things combined, compounds. But this is not a compound because they're the same thing. That is not a compound. So that is not a compound. Easy enough. Not a compound. So you're looking for what's not a compound. Well, this is made up of two different things. This is made up of two different things. This is made up of two different things. Oop, that's the same thing. These bars just mean that they're connected. So you can ignore that for now. But what you're doing here is you're looking at each one of these and trying to figure out where it belongs. Okay, so really quick. Before a race, Ruth drinks a beverage full of molecules to get energy. Okay, these molecules, energy. She wants energy. Sugar gives you energy. Boom, carbs. Okay, Jack's eating a diet high to build muscle. Okay, well, that's obvious. If you want a lot of muscle, it's protein. Sarah wants long-term energy. If you want long-term energy, you want to be able to have a lot of energy for a long amount of time, you're going to eat fat, okay, because you're able to break it down, okay? And then last, genetic test that uses these molecules, genetics. We talked about DNA, that's nucleic acids. We talked about two molecules are which two are compounds? Compounds are two different things, two or more different things combined. So O3, nope, that's the same thing. Cl, that's one, like Cl is one kind of compound, so that's still one thing. This one's two different, C and H, NaHCO3, yes, those are compounds. This question, again, I don't really care that you know how to balance an equation. That's, in my opinion, college level stuff, but what you're looking for is numbers that will help you balance the two sides, okay? And I'm gonna show you the right answer. It's this one, okay? But the reason why, look, you have 4n and 4n. You have 5O2, you have 6O and 4O. That means 10O because 5O2 is 10O and 4O plus 6O is 10. So you're just balancing it out, okay? It's simple as that. This one's kind of like a weird question in my opinion. That's about the periodic table. It says, why might two elements possess similar properties? It's just because they belong to the same group of the periodic table. We group things similarly on the periodic table. This one's kind of confusing. This says most fertilizers contain ammonia. Now this question is trying to trip you up. Ammonia is NH3, so you would automatically go, well, it's either this or this. But if you look, like we talked about, 3H2 makes 6H, and there's only 3H on here. So 3H2 plus N2, okay, that's gonna make the NH3. So you're looking for the NH3, you're looking for an equation that's balanced. It's this one. So it says the molecules in this table all belong to the same thing. It's either a lipid, a protein, a nucleic acid, that kind of stuff. So yeah, you hear nucleic acids, proteins, carbs are lipids, and you're trying to figure out which one it's. But if you look, well, right here you have the word lipid at the end, and on top of that we've got energy storage and whales. We've got cell membranes, like we talked about. That's a lipid. We've got steroid hormones, which is another thing. So that one's lipids. Asks. It says plants contain carbs. In the spring, you see that the cellulose production rates are increased, and then starch decreases. You see all this, and it says, what does this information demonstrate? Just the same thing we know about carbs in general. Structure support, like the cell membrane, like we talked about, and energy storage, because they help you store energy to be used later. And don't overthink this one. This says lactase breaks down to lactose, the sugar in milk. What does lactose break down into? Okay, so we're talking about upset stomach after drinking milk. Again, lactase breaks down lactose, which is the sugar in milk. So if it's sugar, what does it break down into? Monosaccharides. It's the same word. Harder. Okay, so it's asking again, just like we did for lipids, which class everything in here belongs to. And the only way you would know that is that it's proteins, because hemoglobin, which helps transport. So proteins help transport and break things down, and it's a big, it's like a support for a lot of processes in our body, but for especially for transporting things. So the big focus on this paragraph is saying plasmid transfer occurs between two colonies of bacteria. Okay, if you're having a colony, and as it passes things on, what is that? That's genetics, right? So plasmids are nucleic acids, because nucleic acids are what makes up DNA. So passes on genetic traits. One of the first questions, it says, what's the difference between inorganic and organic compounds? Again, organic have carbon, inorganic compounds do not. That is the difference. All right, guys, that's it for this mastery test. Go on to the next one.